Okay, tonight don't forget, tonight's Rosh Chodesh, don't forget Yalav Yovei, and basically it means the 9 days already began. So you have to be careful, we learned the dinim already, but when you cook for Shabbos, don't cook with leftovers in mind, because you can't eat leftovers of Shabbos during the week. So tell whoever is cooking to make sure to cook not too much that you use during the week, number one. You also have to be careful, I mentioned this Wednesday night by the Zoom class, that when you cook food for Shabbos, so a lot of times people taste it to see what it needs, salt, pepper, spice, whatever. But you can't taste the food before Shabbos, because then again you're eating meat before Shabbos, which is still the 9 days, so you're not allowed to. But you're allowed to take a little lick and then spit it out, because that's not called eating. So then it wouldn't be considered eating meat during the 9 days. So all those people that like to eat Shabbos foods before Shabbos, you're not allowed to. Even though it's really a din Shulchan Aruch Tamer Chaim Zachu, but nevertheless it says in halacha you're not allowed to. People that bring in Shabbos early, so when they bring Shabbos in, so then for them it's Shabbos and it's not a problem. Okay, let's get back, not now. Let's get back to where we left off in Muktzeh. The last thing we're discussing in Muktzeh is again, Keli Shemalachtil Isser. We're talking about keys, ignition keys, keys that could be used for doors are not Muktzeh at all. Ignition keys is called Keli Shemalachtil Isser because its primary use is to turn on the ignition. So therefore you can only move it if you need the place or you want to do something permissible with it. And we're discussing that technically opening a car door or a trunk door of a car, if you left things in the trunk before Shabbos, and let's say it's in your backyard, so there's no question of carrying, whatever it is. So again, if a light goes on when you open up your trunk or open up the door, then for sure you can't do it on Shabbos. You can ask a guy to do it, because like we learned, without getting into it again, it's Psik Reisha, and Psik Reisha is allowed by a guy. So you can tell the guy to open the car door to the trunk door. But let's say there is no light on in the car, or you close it before Shabbos. You're allowed to open the car door on Shabbos, even though a car is a keli shemalachta le'issa, but you're doing it l'tzerech gufay. So technically, if somebody wants to sleep in his car on Shabbos, and they disconnect the light, so technically you can take the key, open the car door, and then sleep in the car on Shabbos. You can't move it on Shabbos, but you can sleep in it on Shabbos. Okay, next thing is like this. Electric clocks, electric fans, electric blankets. We started talking about this a little bit. Any electrical appliance in contemporary halacha is called keli shemalachti le'isr. Its primary use is for something forbidden. So therefore, let's say you have an alarm clock next to your bed, and you want to see what time it is. So halachically, you're allowed to move it to you on Shabbos to see what time it is, because that's called Seder Gufi. You're doing something permissible with it. Or if you need the place it's on, then you're also allowed to move it. Just to move it for no reason, or that it shouldn't get ruined, that you're not allowed to. The same thing if you have a fan, portable fan, you're allowed to move it. If you want the fan to blow on you or away from you or whatever it is, those things you're all allowed to move on Shabbos because that's called tzedach gufay. To continue, the fan thing with electric blankets, by the way. If a person sleeps with an electric blanket, so again, the electric blanket is keli shemalachti le'isr because it's electrical. But again, if you want to cover yourself with it or uncover yourself with it, that's called tzedach gufay. You're doing it with something permissible. So that you would also be allowed to do. Another issue like these percolators, coffee urns, for that matter, electric kettles. All these things are what's called, again, keli shemalachti le'isr. Its primary use is something forbidden on Shabbos because you can't cook, water on Shabbos. So therefore, what happens if you have an urn that you set up for Shabbos, but the way you put it, it's not, the spout is not accessible. So you want to move the urn just to be able to get to the thing, so that you'll be allowed to do. Why? Because again, that's called tzedach gufay. What?
What was it, What was
the spout that you want to to take the water out of. Right? So an urn is a Kiddush Melachot L'Isser. You can't move it just, unless you need the place, or let's say it's on the counter and you need to put something there, so you can push it back and push it away. That's not a problem. But, or if you want to use it to take water out of the spout. So if you need to move it, you're allowed to move it for that also. But it's time to move it for no reason, or you just don't want it to get ruined, then you wouldn't be allowed to move it at all. Okay, now another practical din is extension cords or electrical adapters, all these types of things, your phone chargers, all these things are Kiddush Melachot L'Isser. So again, you can only move it like if you need the place or something like that. But what happens if you have an extension cord connecting two things and it's in your way? You need to walk on the floor and you have to, and you want to move it out of the way a little bit. So again, that's called tzarich mekaymeh. Or if you want to use an extension cord to tie something, whatever, not with a permanent knot. So again, that's called tzarich gufi, you'd be allowed to. I'll give you an example. What happens, people have now couches that have phone chargers. You could stick the charger into the... thank you.
I have a lot of truth stories.
Okay, good. So now... So you have the charger is in the thing. So you have a wire on your couch. Now it's Shabbos. You forgot to either take it off or unplug or whatever. Now you want to sit down on the couch. So you're allowed to take the extension, the cord, the charging cord, and move it out of the way because that's called tzarich mekaymeh. You need the place. Stamavei tamur. If you don't need the place, you don't need anything else, then you taka wouldn't be allowed to.
But if it's Muktzeh, in case you wouldn't be able to just...
A phone charger is not certain case.
Why not?
It's not? The little wire?
It's the wire, because it's if it's a whole thing...
No, I'm not talking about the whole thing. I'm talking about... that's also not today. That's not... you have...
Just the wire.
Just the wire. Okay. Even not the wire, just even the adapter is also not. There's a Kiddush Melachot L'Isser. It's not certain kiss. Those things are not that expensive to say. If anything, like we started talking, an iPhone probably is Muktzeh kiss, which is a worse.
Connected to the electricity, but not connected to the phone. Can you take it out of the electricity?
If it's charged, if it's plugged into the wall and not plugged into the phone, you're not allowed to take it out of the plug on Shabbos. B'chlal is a very interesting thing that a lot of people are unaware of. There's a physics aspect, but they always tell you when they talk about saving electricity. If you have something, a lamp plugged into the wall, but you don't turn on the lamp, yeah? So you think it's not taking any electricity. They'll tell you it still takes electricity. Electricity is still running. So therefore, if you pull it out, you're actually disconnecting electricity. So whatever, like we learned already in the past, the issue of electricity is unclear. There's a lot of different poskim but you can't pull out a plug of an appliance in Shabbos based on that fact that there's electricity running, you're going to pull out electricity. So you wouldn't be allowed to do that on Shabbos in any event, even if it's not turned on. But that's a separate issue.
And to wear a digital watch, like you could set it on just a digital mode, it's fine?
If you wear a watch in Shabbos or inside whatever, and it's a digital watch, you're allowed to wear it. The only watch you're not allowed to wear on Shabbos would be, they have watches that the face is all black, and if you want to see the time, you have to press a button, otherwise you can't see it. So those watches you're not allowed to wear on Shabbos, because you'll come to press the button, look at the time. But a watch which is functionable, as is, then you're allowed to wear it on Shabbos. Before you guys were born, a bunch of you, they had the self-winding watches. You remember when you moved your hand? Okay. So that was it. Then the poskim talked about, everything's contemporary relative to the time. So then the big issue was, are you allowed to wear self-winding watches on Shabbos? Because when you move your hand, you're winding it. So then you're winding a watch and you're fixing it. Like a watch which is not working, let's see the wind-up watches, right? A watch which is not working, you're not allowed to wind on Shabbos. That's tikkun Monday, smakat b'patish. You're fixing things on Shabbos. But if it's not like that, so the halacha then, which was clear, obviously, that if the watch before Shabbos is wound up already enough with the movement of your hand that it can last 24 hours without any movement, which most of the time it was able to, so then it's not a problem, because when you're winding it, you're not really fixing it. It's working, and it could work. So you're not doing anything to the watch on Shabbos, so that would be allowed. Or like we discussed, a watch that's not working is also muktzeh. Not because it's keli shemalachta le'isser, because a watch is keli shemalachta le'heter. You're allowed to hold a watch. I mean, you're allowed to tell time. The reason why it's muktzeh is because a broken vessel is muktzeh. So if a man, let's say, has a watch and the battery died, let's say it died even on Shabbos, so that watch becomes completely muktzeh. You have to take it off and just put it down, and that's it. You can't move it for any reason.
It's not Kiddush Matzah at that point?
No, because now it's broken. And a broken keli is not a keli. A keli becomes muktzeh. And it's not usable for the same usage it was before, because it's not, you can't hold time.
It's a gold watch that you wear.
Oh, so now what happens, though, and this is the women are more makel than the men, even though today I don't know, but by a woman, women would wear a beautiful jewelry watch, gold, with this, even if it didn't work, because they wore it as a jewelry piece. Generally speaking, men don't wear watches that don't work for a jewelry piece. Even if you have an expensive Rolex with diamonds, a man, if it's not working, the guy's not going to wear it. So then for him, it's a broken utensil. So for him, it's completely muktzeh. You can't move it for any reason. What?
You have your light by your bed.
If you have the light, a reading light, by your bed, and it's on for you have the Shabbos, the things that you just close the thing. No, the Shabbos lights. Huh? Either close the thing, or the newer ones, you just push something. To close it. So those, again, a lamp is Kiddush Malachta Le'isser. Now what happens if I want to move it closer because I want to be able to read better? That's called Tzedach Gufay, and you would be allowed to move it. If you want to push it away because you don't want the light so much, you want to whatever, so then you can push it away. Yeah, but let's say you don't need the place and the light's not going to bother you because you're going to close it just to move it for no reason, you wouldn't be allowed to. If you want to move it closer to see the light better, then you're allowed to. If you want to move it just because you don't want it this, unless you need the place, but it's usually not the case. So that would be a difference also, a problem also.
But
What?
the light is a tail shot.
What?
The one with the car.
Yeah. What? What? So what? A rock? A rock is completely muktzeh unless if you designate it permanently for a door stopper or with something permissible. A rock, the only thing you're allowed to move Tzedach Gufay Mekayim is Keli Shemlachta Le'isser. Every other muktzeh you're not allowed to move at all. Huh? I'm so good that moving muktzeh the regular way. I'm not talking about shinu. Not always shinu will help, but it depends what type of shinu. But something which is total muktzeh, you can't move for any reason. We said many times, I don't know the heter in Yerushalayim when they throw stones at the cars driving on Shabbos. I don't know where do they get the heter to throw stones on Shabbos?
Maybe they designated to throw on people forever.
No, but it says in Shulchan Aruch, you can't designate it for now. You have to designate it for every Shabbos. So maybe there are people that collect the stones every week.
Every week.
Then maybe then they don't have a problem. Then they're allowed to do it. I mean, they're not allowed to do it anyway. I'm saying as far as muktzeh goes. But otherwise, there's no head to throw stones on Shabbos. What?
I take something which is muktzeh, after the Isser, can I look, just to look at it itself?
That's called Tzedach Gufay.
Is it Tzedach Gufay? You're not using it, there's no use to it, what you're
You
doing.
want to use it to look at it.
And that's fine.
Yeah, that's a permissible usage. Okay, timers, like You know, a sundial, an hourglass, those things are also keli shemalachta l'isser, which is very interesting. Some games, some board games, you have a certain amount of time to do something. So you have those little timers, you know what I'm talking about? This little sand timers. Those are keli shemalachta l'isser. And you can't use it to measure time. Huh? No, because it's...
Shaon Chol, no?
What?
Shaon Chol.
Yeah, Shaon Chol. You're measuring time, and you're not allowed to measure on Shabbos. Let's say it works for half a minute, whatever, yeah? So when you turn it over, you're measuring time with it. You're not allowed to measure time on Shabbos. Only tzarech mitzvah, like mikvah, whatever. But you can't measure on Shabbos. So that's a keli shemalachta l'isser, but now as a keli shemalachta l'isser, you can't play such a game on Shabbos.
But you measuring time.
Huh?
If you tell somebody to be at the temple at 8 o'clock, they're measuring time, no?
No, that's not, what are you measuring time with?
Measuring time, how long is it going to take you to get ready?
That's not called measuring time. Means when you measure something with a utensil of measurements. Let's say a tape measure, a ruler, you know, measuring cup, things like that.
Can you measure time with holding a regular watch in your hand? Like you're not doing anything.
What do you mean measuring time?
I'll give you 30 seconds to do something and I'm...
Yeah, well, you're not doing it. You're not. That's not a keli that's made to measure. What?
What if those moves stuff like a rock or a certain timer? Like what if you're using it as a fidget?
What?
What if you use it as a fidget?
To fidget with it? You're not allowed to.
Hey, let me use an Apple Watch.
Only a pair watch.
A Rolex Watch.
It's keli shemalachta l'isser.
What?
You can't fidget with it. It's keli shemalachta l'isser.
It's a shayla and halacha, okay, but Iraq is not keli shemalachta l'isser.
Not a rock. But
Iraq is total muktzeh. It's a shayla poskim talk about, is fidgeting considered because
right. The whole,
because there's a shayla, it says shh, keli shemalachta leheter,
yeah.
says you're allowed to move, but not for no reason at all.
Yeah, but fidgeting is
1 second. So the Aruch HaShulchan asks, it's a simple Baal Batush question. Obviously, if you're holding it for a reason. So he seems to imply that fidgeting is not called a reason.
fidgeting is not halachic.
It's not, I'm playing with it.
But I'm playing with something.
Huh?
It's Kiddush Malach, it's not okay to measure.
No, even Kiddush Machta Leheter probably you wouldn't be
If I
allowed
take
to.
a fork and I'm done eating and I just go around like
Fork is not muktzeh at all.
but I thought it's inside.
But I'm saying a fork, utensils were never muktzeh.
But even for the sake of fidgeting? That's
Yeah,
not
because
fidgeting?
that never was muktzeh.
Okay, so a chair, if I'm holding it,
Chair was also never muktzeh. Things that the Chachamim said were muktzeh for no reason or fidgeting is not so simple in halacha.
Even your kids are.
What? Passport? We didn't learn those dinim yet. Passports are real muktzeh. Driver's license are real muktzeh. Credit cards are real muktzeh. It's keli shemalachta muktzeh machzon kis. It's complete muktzeh. But some poskim want to be maker with that. Some people say lav davka. Today, people will use a credit card for that, so it's not necessarily a problem. But nobody's going to use a passport to open a lock because it's too precious. Okay.